6. Item B, public comment. The board takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consideration of approving the August 30th, 2018 meeting minutes. Everyone had a chance to look at those?
I make a motion we approve those minutes.
Motion to approve, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to the regular agenda. The presentation of the monthly financial report and event calendar. Perfect timing.
Good morning.
Morning.
Y'all have a copy of the September 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year for FY18. I'm just going to mention one thing that I think y'all would be glad to see. If you look in all the venues for this past fiscal year, revenues exceeded expenses. That doesn't always happen, so that is a good sign and a good way to start off the new fiscal year. So I know we've got a lot on the agenda today. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them or get back with you. But other than that, well, that's the most significant item.
Any questions on the financials? Okay, we can move to the event calendar.
Go ahead and do the event calendar. Of course, and we're going to go back to September bookings. We had 60 total bookings. Of course, you can see we had majority of them are here at the convention center, 14 with COSA. Of course, you can view those as well. In October, we had 86 total bookings, and the convention center, of course, had 29, which is the most too as well. And then in November, for now, we're up to 56 total bookings at the convention center, with 39 of them being at the convention center, 21 of them City of San Angelo meetings. Past events from what we've had in the past, of course, we had the Viva San Angelo with Signo at the River Stage. We had approximately about 1,200 in attendance. We also had the JBF sale too as well, the Gun and Blade show, and also 38 Special at the River Stage too with 1,500 that was in attendance for that event. Future events that we have coming up, we do have the Concho Kennel Club at the Coliseum for November 5th. A new festival being put together, Caddy Cove Festival, November 10th at the River Stage, featuring Randy Rogers Band. We also have Ladies Night Out that'll take place here November 15th. Pearl Fest at the River Stage November 17th, and then Aaron Watson concert December 1st and Cody Johnson concert on December 7th. Both of those are at the Coliseum.
Catico is cattle, oil, and cotton?
Yes, sir.
Any questions on the calendar? With none, we'll move forward. Thank you. The next item would be consideration of Civic Events Annual Hotel Occupancy Tax Allocation Method, percentage or fixed budget, and recommending any related matters.
Good morning, Board. My name is Ryan Gaddy. I'm the Assistant Director of Finance for the city. And today what I'd like to do is review with you the budget for 2019 and give you some options with regard to a recommendation for what we want to establish as a fixed amount of funding for the Civic Events organization. So if we look at the Civic Events organization and we look at the different funding sources, the hotel occupancy tax, the budget for 2018 was about $891, and we have a budget in 2019 of $931, which is an increase of about $40,000. We have some interest earnings that accrue to the fund each year. And then we have some advertising revenue that is generated by the Civic Events Group. If you look at the venues that Sid just reviewed with you, the revenues that were budgeted in 2018 were 527, and we're budgeting slightly less than that for 2019. I guess we've taken a somewhat of a conservative approach there. You can see the expenditures are relatively flat, and so there's probably some opportunity in that total venues. If you look at staff and other expenditures, the payroll type expenditures, which constitute the largest expenditures in this Civic Events Fund, we're looking at a relatively flat level there as well, and the administration cost associated with all the different venues is increased slightly. So you can see that from 2018 to 2019, we had we budget a neutral revenues equals expenses for each of our funds. So what I would recommend for the Civic Events Group is a fixed budget level of $940,000 to present to the City Council tomorrow or next Tuesday, and that's what you as a board need to discuss and debate and produce a recommendation that we can carry forward to the council. So, do you have any questions about the genesis of the 940 relative to their budget?
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what is the reason of trying to go to a fixed funding versus what we've been doing?
Well, the council has directed us to pursue fixing the budget for all of the recipients of the hotel occupancy tax. And currently, there are only two remaining that have a percentage-based budget allocation, or funding allocation, I'm sorry. And the Civic Events gets 48%, and they just want to, create a fixed level of funding for that, for each of the different recipients of that hotel occupancy tax.
So if you set a fixed budget, and so let's say there's a tremendous downturn, then wouldn't it be possible that maybe then we run into a negative issue versus when you do it by percentage, then if there's less money coming in, then the budget's less, so there's more money coming in?
Actually, and that's part of the reason that I'm Rick Wise, the Assistant City Manager, that council did this a few years ago. They did it with the Convention and Visitor Bureau. So on a year where you have a bad year, your dollars aren't coming in. So this was a real measure to try and give departments, or in their case, the chamber or the CVB, some consistency in knowing what those dollars are. So the fund, their goal was to build the fund up a little bit, and that way if you have a bad year, the fund covers that. You don't have to drop off and try and figure out how you're going to cover cost. So this is to level that out and let them know exactly what they're going to do. Now, I will say, in good years, you've seen some of those, the fund will build up, and that's kind of the goal. And what council was looking at then is you have other needs, you may have facility needs, you have all these things, the fund builds up, and then this board recommends, staff brings to council a recommendation, hey, we need these things done to our buildings that are outside of the normal budget. The fund can support it. I think Sid's done some of that already recently. So that's kind of the history on it.
So when you say the fund, you're talking about the 410 fund, is that correct? Okay.
Well, yeah, the 410 fund or the 605 fund. I mean, to the extent there are projects above and beyond the fixed level of funding, there is a mechanism in place to, like Rick said, to request additional funding. But they would have to be reviewed and considered by the council.
It's my understanding that the overseer of the 410 fund is actually the city council, is that correct?
Yes, the city council is responsible for the overseer of the 605 fund, which is the hot fund. And of course, they're responsible for the 410, which is the Civic Events Board component of that funding mechanism. Okay. Is that clear? You didn't?
Yeah, and so let's take the dollars further downstream. So once the money goes in and it goes into the 410 fund, does it eventually flow back into the general fund, or does it always stay in the 410 fund?
It stays. I think, let me go back a couple of years, because initially, the entire hotel occupancy tax was recorded in the 410 fund. A couple of years ago, they separated it, and 410 became one of the recipients of the hot funds, but the hot fund was actually created in Fund 605. So that may have been where, you know, if you've served on this board for some period of time, your experience may have, you know, it may have been that was in the 410 fund, but we've moved that outside.
Right to the 605,
Yeah,
right?
and none of your hot funds ever revert back to the general fund. They'll stay there. Now, this board, as with most all of our boards, COSA-DC, any of those, are advisory boards.
Right.
So you review those and then recommend whatever that is to council, who has the ultimate power
Exactly.
on how those dollars are spent.
And I think if you look at this and you consider the tools that are in place in like Rick said, with regard to additional funding requirements, there are mechanisms in place for them to request those funds and have them assigned to, you know, like needs within the civic events organization. I think this year we did some stuff at the Coliseum. I think we replaced about $300,000
You can talk
above and
about that
beyond the normal, you know, the 900,000 or so in hotel occupancy tax that was assigned to the fund.
So what's the new allocation gonna be? I know that downtown San Angelo gets some money. I know that Fort Concho gets some money. Who else is getting money for the
Sports complex.
sports complex? So basically, they're all fixed budget, and that's what you're trying to do, is just basically just make, the CVB and everybody fixed budget. And so
Correct.
have you come up with how everything's gonna be allocated as far as the fixed budgets are concerned? Who's getting what now?
Well, yeah,
Or everything else is staying the same?
right, everybody else is staying the same. So, you know, like the Fort Concho gets a set amount, and it's been set for a period of time. Same is true for the sports complex. The downtown San Angelo gets a set amount. San Angelo Performing Arts Council gets a set amount. No, I'm sorry, theirs is still, until their contract expires, theirs is still based at 5%. And then the other one would be the Arts Council. And it's, actually, the Arts Council is the one that gets 5%.
Right.
The San Angelo Performing Arts Center gets a set amount.
Right. Just to clarify, through the budget process, we start off with a fixed budget. We still have a process where we can ask for additional funds. There's a methodology to ask for additional funds in the budget process, what we call target increase requests. It's a formal application during the budget process where we ask for additional funds if we need them for our operating budget or for capital improvements.
And I know this is further down the agenda, but how does the facility fee go into effect what is going on with this fixed budget? That makes any
Affected.
sense?
I'm sorry?
In terms of the operating budget, there's no,
Right, that's
would be
the
no
budget, that's the
change,
budget, right.
would be no
But-
change in that.
But are we not gonna, well, I'll bring it up when we could go over the facility fee item.
So I'll kind of jump in here. I've never been a fan of flat fees on anything. You know, all your taxes are based off percentages. Okay, if you read tax code 351, everything is percentage based. You're only allowed to allot a certain amount of percentage to the arts, a certain amount towards tourism. All of it is percentage based. So, you know, in good years, we've been able to take care of facility needs. And so by getting a flat fee, we're going to be at a flat fee, period. And we're always going to have to go to council to ask for more money to address our facilities. We're not going to have the say to address our facilities, I think, with the flexibility that we do now. You know, there may be other opinions, but I'm just throwing out mine. And we did separate these two funds based off the fact that we were still percentage based. That when it's good years and with hot money, that we would still receive our 48%, 49%. We would still receive that. So in good years, we'd take advantage of that and let's fix some facilities. In bad years, we'd have to, you know, tighten the belt and come up with some other revenue sources and facility fees and things like that. So I think we've lived well within our means and done what we can, and I hate to restrict us even more, which comes down to, at the end of the day, do we truly have a say, with what we've discussed anyway? So, the more we give up to that, I think our relevance, decreases. So that's just my opinion, throwing it out there. Again, everything is percentage-based in the tax code. I've never been a fan of getting away from that. But that's just my opinion. So we'll throw it out there for any further discussion.
I would like to say, I think keeping with our percentage is a much cleaner, easier, less complicated way than doing just a flat rate. And like you say, it's worked very well. I have to agree with what you said.
And I think you can make whatever recommendation you choose to make as an advisory board. So, I mean, that's.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. We're simply an advisory board.
Well,
I mean, the
it's not
council's
simply,
going to do, whatever the council, deems best for it. We're just basically just giving you kind of our opinion. It's just something that I haven't had time to digest.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're wanting us to make a decision today, since I don't know, when's it going to council?
Yeah, there needs to be a recommendation today because it's going to council on Tuesday the 6th.
Yeah.
What are the means of sources that that are taken whenever there is a bad year? I mean,
Well, there is a fund, there is a fund balance that has accumulated, and to the extent, the down periods don't last too long, we can continue to operate each of our venues with those, with the fund balance that exists.
necessary means. Okay.
Because we inspect all the facilities. I mean, to a little bit detail point, and I just know that when we sit here and send recommendations to council about things that need to be fixed and get to code, there's a lot of stuff that the Coliseum that needs to get done. How hard is it going to be going to, Sid's organization has generated this revenue. Now we're going to go back and say, man, can we have some of it back so we can fix some?
And I
some
think
facilities.
all requests are reviewed with reasonableness. I mean, at the city level and at the council level. I mean, if there's a need, I mean, clearly these are the assets that the city has built over the years, and they're not going to let them get to a point where they're not, usable.
I'm with you. I have a fear that, in a bad year, we're stuck with our, so a couple of different things here. On a good year, we're going to be stuck with our flat rate and not be able to address some of those issues that maybe we've been holding off for a year or two. And, like I said, 49% is 49%. It's guaranteed 49%. What happens if hot comes down? Are you guys going to decrease that flat fee because you've got contracts with 10 other entities here? So that's my fear, is we've always had that kind of reassurance to know we've always got 49%, regardless of what council decides to do. And I understand it also. Council's going to make their decision regardless of what we say today, and that's known. But that's been our saving grace, is we've always had 49%, regardless of what they decide to do with these other entities.
You can ask it. Bringing in performers and those kind of things. The facilities are just so important at the experience that these people bring in, who are putting out the money to come in, and they gamble with the River Stage, with the Coliseum. What kind of performance? If performers come in and says, "Man, I don't really want to go to San Angelo because of this or that. The facilities are just so bad," stuff like that. That has always been a big concern of mine. That's why I ended up getting on the board, because, are we ever going to build another Coliseum? I don't know. We probably just have to keep patching this one up. I don't think in my lifetime. And so this is so important that if we're having good years, that it just makes it seem like it's easier to go to council and go, hey, we've made some money, but we need to spend it to keep the facilities going. I mean, you've been to the Coliseum and the things that need to be done at the River Stage and all the other facilities. That's my biggest concern.
And I guess my recommendation there would be that that working with Sid and his team, that you collect what kind of improvements you feel like are necessary, and we'll start trying to capture what the cost is to make those improvements.
We inspect them every year and we make recommendations
Yeah.
every year.
And because we made a fairly significant investment in the Coliseum this past year. So,
And again, we're going to be fighting for a fund balance that several other entities are pulling out of. And in a bad year, again, my concern in a bad year when hot taxes are very low and you've guaranteed all of these entities these flat fees, including us, it's going to chip out of that 605 fund balance. When that 605 is gone, who's going to be penalized? Internally, it's going to be a lot easier to penalize the civic events enterprise
Well, I mean, I
fund
think, you
versus these other entities, because you've got contracts with these. You don't necessarily have a contract with civic events, so it's very easy for the fourth floor to just go ahead and decrease what they give civic events to balance the budget. And that's my concern, is not having that guarantee of percentage based.
well, my understanding is that most of those contracts are negotiable, so they can, the council has the authority to go back and renegotiate all those contracts should they need to.
Each contract is typically 3 years, 5 years?
I think they vary.
Very.
Yeah, the CVB is year to year. I think the SAPAC is, the only other one that's, it's a little longer. I think it's a 4-year contract that expires 2020.
And to
Downtown
negotiate,
is 5.
5.
But it's renegotiable on
If and again, this is my second meeting, and I'm kind of getting acclimated. But my thinking is, one, how often do we meet? Do we ever have joint meetings with city council? And is that something that maybe we should recommend, and having at least one a year with city council to have that kind of interface to say, hey, this is what we're faced with. These are the decisions that we're working towards to help you do a better job of managing the civic events elements that we're looking at, and trying to figure out how to and get their ideas and thoughts behind it. I mean, each of us is representing one of the members on council. How often do you meet with them and talk to them about what they're and tell them, hey, this is what we're challenged with. These are the things that we do. How often do y'all do that?
Probably not enough.
I've been here 2 years, hasn't happened in 2 years.
Right, but so you can take the initiative to do that, right? We can all take the initiative to do that, to sit down with our appointee representative and have that conversation. And that's the way we're going to influence change. If we just sit up here and talk about it like we're doing here today, and the meeting is on Tuesday, well, guess what? It's a little late. So I think we've got to be more proactive if we're going to take a stance on or this particular item that we're discussing today. So I see that as shame on us for not being proactive in that way.
Well, shame on us, but we just got the information today.
Well,
And
you
all-
know,
So we can
how long
only-
have we known these issues though? How long have we known that we've had facility challenges? How long have we known that, I think there's elements that we do already know that we could be addressing.
We're talking about this specific item.
Excuse me. Every year we do a
walkthrough of
facility
all facilities.
walkthrough, and so with every year we do that part of it, and then we still take in council members and say, hey, these are the situations that we're looking at and stuff. So I do understand we do actually do it. We've done it plenty of times. We've had a few conversations. But I understand where you're actually coming from, where it's, but this issue right here just came up. This is just thrown to them now. It's going to council on Tuesday.
The issue of the flat line?
Yes, sir.
Flatlining the
Yeah, so
budget?
it really didn't, honestly, it doesn't give them enough time to.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we talk to our members, to our city council members, and ask them to give us a couple of more opportunities, or is there a budget deadline that this decision has to be made?
No, this is independent of the budget. This
Okay.
is,
So we could ask for some time, right?
well,
Maybe?
I think what they're looking for is just a recommendation. I mean, you could make a recommendation that says that you feel like you need more time to, but I think at
So basically, it's on their agenda, and they're gonna probably take a vote on it.
Yeah, they're gonna
It-
vote
it-
on it Tuesday.
It is on this agenda because there are a particular few council members that have already decided. That's why it's on here, to try to get our recommendation, although our recommendation won't mean anything. I would be surprised if it does.
How can we ever change that any recommendations, me coming to you on board, I don't like hearing that we're just an advisory board, because to me, we're important, because we're sitting up here. How can we change that view of our, recommendations and fix it? I mean, putting forth some effort to change that level, as Dell says, of, how much pull we have. Yeah, at the end of the day, they're going to do what they want to do, but we have some strong minds up here. How can we change that?
I have not heard that they had their mind made up. I do know there are some council members who have said they would like to move forward with this. I believe that they listen to all boards. You are appointed by a board member, so you specifically may want to contact that board member that appointed you. That's usually one of the most effective ways.
Right.
So it's my opinion that they do listen. If they didn't listen at all, then I agree, why are we having these boards
Right.
here to begin with? But I don't believe that's the case. I think that, of course, you have the most pull with your direct member. And so I would recommend you contact them
Okay.
directly. The other thing that helps a lot, and I know you all have jobs and you're working, you don't have time to come to the council meeting all the time, but also showing up at those meetings when they're discussing that item is also usually very effective.
And to be honest with you guys, I interface with a lot of different boards as a non-voting member, and they all have the same ideas. They all say, well, why are we doing this? Because, we don't have a voice. Well, you do. You're appointed by a council member, and that council member you should be talking to about these issues and if we're going to be effective, I think we're going to have those discussions among ourselves. I think, and that's what we're trying to do today, is have a discussion, come up with a plan, and then go to your council member or appointed representative and have that discussion. This is what we discussed. This is what we think. Will you support this?
I agree.
So is a consensus to request a delay on this? What do you guys think? We'll take any motions that are thrown out there unless there's further discussion on this.
I personally would like a little bit more time just to be able to figure out more about what we're working through here. I don't have enough information at this point to be able to say, oh yeah, this is what we need to do. I would like to see a delay.
Yeah, and I'm with Dale there. And maybe what you guys are doing is a great idea. Just hadn't had time to digest it. It's a lot that you're throwing at us, and it's kind of a permanent move as far as us giving them recommendation. I understand. So at this point, I'll make a motion that we table the discussion and ask for council for more time so that we can figure out exactly how this affects us down the road.
I second that motion.
Yeah, I have just a follow-up question as well. So who actually goes to who? How does this process going to work? We're asking this delay. Who delivers the message to council and says, hey, they're asking for delay, will you grant it?
Well, I think whenever the council, the resolution to the council is presented, it'll say that the Civic Events Advisory Board
Got
has
it.
requested a delay.
And for
What if
more
they-
time too?
Right.
All right.
I mean, I think
Can-
that would be the recommendation that they would be looking to you for, and that's how it would be served up.
And if they deny that,
I mean, they have that option, obviously.
then
Well, it was
we
worth a
just
try.
lost our chance to express our opinion.
Other than going to the council meeting and
Right.
voicing it
Right.
Between now
at the meeting.
Right.
I guess my fear of going to the council meeting, for instance, if one of us shows, we need to be representative of this board, and it seems to me like we don't have a unanimous decision from all of us. I have my own thoughts, and that is not to go flat, but I'm with Karen. Is the delay going to lessen our effect of saying no or yes, one way or the other, however this board votes? Do we lessen that effect, by then delaying it and lose our chance to speak our voices, period? And I would hate for each and every one of us with our own different opinions to step up to that dais or the microphone at the council meeting, and then we look like we're, kind of not unified, but.
Well, yeah, but all we're asking really right now is just to take some time to take the information, and sit there and study it and see what the proper recommendation. You guys might be up to something, onto something. You guys, maybe it's not the best thing that we would recommend, but I really couldn't vote yay or nay on that right now without.
Let me ask this question, I'm sorry. Let me ask this question. So this was brought to us because some city council members decided this is what needs to happen?
There was interest by council members. There was interest by council members to consider this.
Okay.
That's where my confusion was as well, because typically, again, the communication between us and our council members, that should be passed down, and one of us should have requested to put this on the agenda item. But it was put on by a council member. I assume that's able to happen because it did, but.
This was an item that was discussed during the budget process for council as a whole. So when they're looking at the budget, they go over a whole lot of stuff. One of the things, of course, is this hot funds. They're looking at these other ones that have been converted over. So that's where the discussion came. It wasn't just sort of out of thin air. In analyzing the entire budget, they said, okay, why has this one stayed the same while all these others have changed? And so then at that point, they asked the budget group to look into that, although they had to implement a budget because you didn't want to be without dollars for that many years. So they implemented a budget and said, now follow through with looking into this and bringing it back to council for review. So that's where it started. It wasn't just sort of a random person picking it out. It was during the budget cycle.
When was the budget cycle?
Well, those meetings occurred in the August timeframe.
And it's just now coming to us.
Yes.
And are they pushing for a flat fee for this other organization as well?
The other organization?
Yeah, you said there was two of us that were
Yeah.
still percentage-based.
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure where, I know that contract doesn't expire for another period, till like 2020, so I'm not sure what options they have there.
We have a motion, we have a second. So we can take a vote on that and go from there. So again, the motion is to recommend to City Council to table this item until Civic Events Advisory Board has ample amount of time to review this based on the facts that we just heard about this today for the first time. So we've got that motion. We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. With that, we'll move forward. Thank you, Rick, for your time on that item. We'll move to item number 4, discussion of civic events, facility projects, and recommending any related matters.
Okay, we've heard a lot of discussion about the facilities, and we are working like crazy to do the best we can with that. So on the first one, the electrical needs at the river stage, it's finally stopped raining a little bit. So on the 19th, we have concerts out there on the 10th and 17th. So on the 19th, we're going to start with the trenching, and we're going to put those receptacles in where they'll be able to just come in and run their power from up there on the tiered plaza instead of having to run cables all the way up to all the plugs clear up on the top. So that's going to start on the 17th. We've already replaced the disconnect box in the river stage, the one that was bad, and we got that done this week. Lower ring at the Coliseum, they've been working on for about 3 weeks. Jeremy Harrison told me that they're plan on being done on Friday, and that was on Monday, and then they had one day off yesterday when it rained. So either the end of this week or the beginning of next week, they should be done. I walked around yesterday on all the places that were done. There are no leaks now. We don't have water all over the floor. So that's a real good thing. The sprinkler system, they have replaced all of the, most of the sprinkler heads, and they've found some in a certain area that are different, and they had to order those, so we're waiting on those to come in for them to finish that. we're talking about when you walk into Coliseum, it's always been kind of dark and everything, you know, and you feel like sometimes you're walking into a dungeon. Well, that's no longer the case because we've taken all of those lights out and we've put LEDs in there, and we're about 95% done with that. So I encourage you to come on out and take a look because it really, really looks nice in there. And this we've completely done by ourselves. We haven't had a contractor out there. We've retrofitted all these ourselves. The only cost that we have in this is the price of the bulbs themselves. So other than that, are there any questions?
We come out to look. Do we come look for you, or do we
Just
have this
contact me on my cell phone,
Okay.
325-5121, 234-5121. So just contact me and I'll be glad to show you around.
Hey, Steve, what have we done as far as fire code type stuff, the exit
Yes.
signs and those kind of things?
The fire code stuff is complete. They're getting ready to do their yearly walkthrough again. So I can't say that it'll be complete next week because you know how it is. They always find something else. So all of the exit lights and everything are completely done. The ring lights in the arena have been retrofitted to where they pop on automatically when the generator comes on, which before they would come on with the generator if the switch was turned on.
Right, I remember that.
So, and you know, that was a problem because
Somebody might turn the
You're
switch
doing a show, the lights are off. So now they're done so that if the generator pops on, they come on. So there's plenty of light to egress the building.
That big
and-
pump that needed replacing outside, did that get?
The pump, the base has been replaced, and they were talking about having to replace the pump, but when they re-looked at it, they decided that they could repair and just clean up all the corrosion and everything and make it okay. So they're working on that now. And the other part was the sprinklers, and they're almost done with those. So that's going to clear all of the yellow tags, so we shouldn't have any more yellow tags.
So will the fire marshal or his representative come to the meeting afterwards and give us an update on
I
anything?
can invite him, or, yeah, we can make sure that
Hey,
happens.
did they replace that air conditioning unit? Is that
Yeah,
all done?
That's all done, yes, and that and Air Handler 3, which hadn't been working for about 5 years, that's all in. And everything, we've run that new chiller for probably the last 6 months. Well, when was it, June? Yes, so five or 6 months, and that thing really works great, so. It's much more efficient than the old one. So, and what we're gonna do is, if I've got a quote out to put fencing up all the way around, because right now, anybody can kind of pull up and go back in there. And so all the grates and everything, kids have gotten back in there and put designs on the grates and all that stuff. So we're gonna fence that off to where that it won't be accessible anymore. So we can protect our investment, so.
At the River Stage, do
Yes,
we
ma'am.
still have plans to renovate the restrooms?
Yes, we are. We're working on quotes right now, as a matter of fact. So we're looking at renovating, but we're looking at building additional restrooms is what we're quoting right now. Because really, there's not enough facility right now. So if you go down there to a concert, the line is always real long, and we've got all the porta potties out there and everything. So we're working on quotes right now to build some new restrooms.
Anything planned for the convention center?
Not as of right now.
And I need to ask this question. Is the convention center in the stage that it's in, is it causing us business over places like Abilene, Midland, Odessa?
Like as in conventions, those types of events?
sir.
Yes, sir. We haven't had a convention in quite some time right now.
And would you attribute that to the facility or
Yes,
just
sir.
the location?
It's just not enough breakout room. It's just location in the facility. Not enough breakout rooms. Not enough in this area right here for conventions. You know, a lot of times those conventions are done in the downtown areas, or those areas where they can walk around and do other things and stuff, and they don't have to have so much with transportation. And so we do lose a lot of events, a lot of conventions, I believe, with that. But that's where we're at right now with our facility.
I think that needs to be.
But I can say we still do fill up a lot of our weekends with the locals for quinceañeras and weddings and, those types of events. So, yes, in our budget, we actually did pretty well, in actual rentals. We actually were very well this year, but we're not being able to bring in those conventions that do bring in those out-of-town.
We're going to change the name to the Quinceañera Center?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It's on the agenda.
You can change it to bodas y quinceañeras.
I think that, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment that I also I'm on the CVB board. Actually, I go to a meeting after this one to that one, and they are constantly hammering on that same issue that this facility doesn't help us when they're trying to get these conventions here. So that's something I think that probably we should work
It's a huge
jointly with
challenge.
them
Right.
to see if we can
Would be
make
nice.
inroads, especially with our city council representatives.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Dale.
And that's a prime example, I'm glad y'all brought it up, of a struggle that you have, a thing that you noticed. So, that's a great spot where this board may make a recommendation to council that, if the fund is looking good, you may say, we recommend that we actually hire someone to actually start looking into either the expansion of this one or a new one. If you feel that is an area that we really need to focus on, then those are recommendations that can go from the board for the use of dollars that are available. Because we really never get there unless we come up with a plan of how it is we're going to actually achieve it.
Hey, Rick, excuse me, before you take off, well, I know there's just discussions all over the place about, the Coliseum and what's going to happen in the future with that and development and new stuff. And there's all these other elements, partners that are potential in that. At some point, do we, as a Civic Events Board, take on that subject? Or is that at a different?
I think it would be, this board would be a great start for unifying the groups, as you said. Maybe what needs to happen is a joint meeting that you could host here. Maybe you bring over the CVB group. You may want to include the stock show group. I don't know. So that is if you have the synergy of all those groups working together, you can at least hash out, okay, what's reasonable, what's not. Is there a possibility? No. So a joint meeting might be a good starting point.
Have there been studies in the past where as to what to do with that issue?
Not really, and it depends, what you want to what level you want to take it. As y'all talked about a while ago, it's basically functioning now as a local event center. That's what we use it for. If San Angelo wants to grow beyond that, then your level is different. There's the discussion of, can you build a facility that does it for all? Well, the complication with that is what Sid talked about. For a convention, you may want to be downtown. For a rodeo, you may not want to be downtown. So that's where those groups, having at least a candid discussion amongst each other might be able to come up with a proposal of how we as San Angelo would like to move forward.
There was a committee put together by the county, and Rick and I had the privilege of working on that committee, and Rick made I thought a tremendous recommendation of what could happen with space that would be allocated for really a convention center, because again, this really is not a convention center per se, and I think that is a really formidable idea that should be pursued.
Well, y'all might talk about it as an agenda item in the future, and if if a convention center or other facilities are ones you want to, really think we need to focus on, then, we can take a proposal to council. It may mean that you want some initial planning dollars. If that's the case, then, we ask council to allocate those based on your fund and get their buy-in and can move forward.
I think those are great ideas. I think that when we can generate outside, folks to come into town, then as an enterprise fund, we can contribute back to those hot dollars. Anything we can do to beef up this convention center or any of our facilities to generate, the quinceañeras, yes, it's great revenue, and I'm not picking on just them. I'm just simply saying, events that we do host here are just, a lot of folks are, in-town folks, and so they're not we're
We're
not,
not generating head and beds
right,
with that.
right. We're not full circling, and contributing probably what we should be. So I think those are great ideas, and I liked Rick's idea of putting it on a future agenda item.
Because as we bring people to San Angelo, I mean, everybody benefits, the retailers benefit, the hotelers, the restaurants.
Do we have any more on that item?
Sir.
So we'll go ahead and move forward to number 5, discussion of civic events facility fees and recommending any related matters.
So we have been discussing about the facility fees. Of course, the facility fees haven't been looked at or reviewed in the past 12 years. Of course, facility fees are mandated by City Council. Right now, the facility fees are $1.50 for profit, 50 cents for nonprofits. They had, like I said, in 2006, this is when 2006 where I read where it went from 50 cents to actual $1.50. So let's go ahead and just get the discussion started. So the first line, of course, it says 16,000 lost facility fee revenue in fiscal year 18. That's just for events that we had that were nonprofit. So we had three concerts at the Coliseum that were we only collected 50 cents for those. They were great events. They had great attendances and everything, but we only collected 50 cents on those events. And then we also had 2 other events at the River Stage. So if we would have had just $1.50 across the board for all of ours, this is what we could have had extra in the budget. Would have been $16,000. With other city venues, and this isn't just city venues, I'm talking about just what other cities are actually doing. They're actually charging for the rentals actually include the stage. Well, they're charging for the stage, the chairs, the tables. Instead of charging a facility fee, they charge you just for separate for all the line items that you're going to be using and stuff. So they don't actually have a lot of the facilities don't have something called a facility fee. Instead, they're having a service fee. Now, with the ticketing, what has changed is the ticketing companies are now starting to give a portion back of their service fee that they're actually charging to the customer. So they give back a quarter, 50 cents, but you would have to be in a contract, an agreement with a certain ticketing company so you can be able to, capture that revenue too as well. Little review on a few facilities. The City Auditorium, SAPAC, they have their facility fee. Is actually at $2. City of Abilene doesn't have a facility fee, but they're one of those that do charge for their exhibition hall. They charge $3 for a chair. They charge you for the stage, how big the stage is. They charge you for everything else. So the customer may not be paying that facility fee, but that's put on the promoter. So just imagine the promoter's bill is a little bit bigger because it's not a customer-based fee. City of Amarillo, they have a $3 service fee, but they also, when I did the research on them, they also had a $6 internet convenience fee on top of that. So that's $9 in fees on top of the ticket that you're actually purchasing. And then the Ector County Coliseum doesn't have a facility fee as well too. Now, I'm not saying they don't have it hidden, and a lot of places don't call them. We're one of the last venues that I can say that we actually call our places facilities. Most of them, the term has moved on to venues, so sometimes for me, it's going back and forth on that. So let's look at the River Stage facility fees from 2015 on through to 2018. So we budgeted, of course, you can see we budgeted $1,000 one year. And it only brought in $2,064. 2016, we budgeted $12, but it only brought in $2,862. But in 2017, we budgeted only $4,000, and that's where we brought in $14,412. Now, everybody will look at 2017. That's the year that we had multiple concerts with ZZ Top, Temptations, across the board. We had great events. They were all a success. And then in 2018, we only had 5,657. But in 2018, we also, like I said, we had 6 nonprofit concerts or events. Coliseum facility fees, 2015 to 2018. You can see we normally keep it at 109. The bulk of that does come in from the stock show and rodeo. About 90,000 of that does come in from that, but the rest of it is brought in from events that or concerts and events that we do have. For me, with anybody got questions on those before we move on?
This might be a stupid question, but when we collect this facility fee, where does that money go? What fund, what account, where's that money go?
Well, for the line item is actually, every facility has its own facility fee account.
Okay, so, and it just stays there, or does it flow down?
He's captured his revenue in his 410 Civic Events budget that pays for operations, for the budgeted operations for the year. So he receives it as revenue and can spend it as expenditures as budgeted in his accounts, his operation accounts,
To pay for,
all operations.
So it's not directly
Should be
correlated
look
with
at
that
Facility
particular
fee, and that's what we're
facility
trying to get to.
which is, I guess is what I was kind of getting at. I don't understand. I would assume that at some point when somebody generated a facility fee, they says, hey, we're gonna be using this facility, let's collect a facility fee, so when things start to wear down, we take that money
Well,
and we
that's-
spend it.
That's kind of where he's
Is that,
headed.
is that being too
Yeah,
That's
simple?
kind of where
we're
he's
going.
heading.
Okay.
That's where we're going. So the proposal would be for promoters to turn in a 501c3 upon signing of the rental agreement. If you are a nonprofit, promoters must be promoting the event as a benefit, and that 100% of the proceeds are given to a nonprofit organization, and then city's facility fee must be shown on the ticket. So it can't be an extra dollar put on there, and it's not actually going as a facility fee. It's just a hidden fee somebody puts on there. I have two proposals for you all to look at. I did one of them that takes it, step going up a quarter to get, or going up 50 cents on one of them too as well. And then I also have a different proposal. As you can see on this one, for profit for the concerts in 2020, looking at trying to go up to $1.75, and then 2021 going up to $2. And if we wanted to, and then as you can see for the nonprofit, it goes up 50 cents per year in the next 4 years. Proposal 2 would be that we just go up to the $2 and just stay there at $2. But instead, I know there would be some argument about, well, what are we going to do for the nonprofits? Instead, what other venues are actually doing, they're actually giving discounts on the rental, on the base fee of the rental. So the actual base cost of the rental, that's what you're getting your discount on. But if you're actually doing a concert, we still have that capped amount. So if you're selling tickets, that revenue amount is gonna go up.
And that's logical, because that way the nonprofit that's actually hosting the event, customer who pays the increased facility fee.
Right, because a nonprofit's not gonna wear the facility out any less than a profit
Yes,
customer.
exactly.
Basically, with proposal 2, the nonprofit would receive, you're saying, a discounted flat rental fee.
No, they would discount it on a base rental fee. So just on the base. If we're doing a capped event, then they'll still get, let's say right now it's $750 versus 10%. Well, on a nonprofit, we'll go down to, let's say, $500 or $350, and then versus 10%. That way, you're not there. It's that upfront fee that the nonprofit is paying for. They can pay that upfront.
So would that change generate a policy review and change?
Yes, we would have to. It would have to go. Yes, policy review, and that'll be coming up later on in the meeting. We'll get to that part of it.
Point earlier, his next item is going to talk about how do we capture revenue for improvements. This item is looking at strictly the facility use fee. There hasn't been an increase since 2006.
It was 2006, 2009. Somewhere.
So we're looking at, 1, increasing it, and then 2, bringing nonprofits up to the same level as profits. So
Again,
we need your input on if you want to go there and how.
Again, this is just a user fee increase, essentially.
Yes,
This
sir.
is
It's a
only put on the
It's a
attendee.
customer-based fee.
Okay. I'll throw out my opinion. It's go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid and go for proposal 2, especially since it truly won't affect the nonprofit themselves.
Okay, so and with that, that's fine. Now after that, we will have to discuss where we will keep the nonprofit I guess, the base rental fee. So we would have to discuss that for facilities too as well, moving forward. But I'm good with saying, hey, we want to move the direction of it, of moving forward and going to $2 facility fee, as long as if we have that going. And then we can go the part with the base rental fee. We can do that as a. We had a committee last year that looked at the policies, and we also did a fee review too as well. So whenever we do get to that part, we can look at that as well for the nonprofits.
The nonprofit's gonna get more benefit out of a base.
The nonprofit concert's been the one that's been doing great.
Any other thoughts, opinions, discussions? Take a motion. Do we need a motion to?
What is the motion? Yes, we need some recommendation.
We'll take a motion from anyone.
I'll make a motion that we aim towards proposal 2.
I second that motion.
So first by Don, second by Naomi. So the motion is to go ahead and accept proposal 2 moving forward, and then we will address the other on the next agenda item, the base rate. Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Go ahead and move on to that next agenda item, discussion of capturing some revenue for future facility improvements and recommending any related matters.
So this leans on to what we've just discussed. Of course, future facility improvements, event management software, of course, is something that we do need for the conventions, actually for all of our facilities. It helps us track, this will be able to help us track our what we're doing in certain areas and stuff. This is definitely something that we need. We want to be able to, I want to be able to know what I have open on our calendar. And right now, I would have to go into the main office to find out what we do have open for our facilities, and it's just a little bit more of a process. Again, this is one of those, we've been having the same management software for going on probably close to 20 years now, so it's time for a change with that. Coliseum parking lot seal coat, we've discussed that. Convention center parking lot seal coat. Paseo Farmers Market parking lot seal coat. HVAC for the convention center. Paseo LED lighting. Coliseum marquee, Coliseum front doors, new River Stage restrooms and concessions, floor scrubbers, and then the convention center parking lot going to LED lighting too as well. These are some of the needs that we see in the future that we would like to get accomplished. So where can we capture some revenue for future facility improvements? I know in our last board meeting we did discuss this. So we looked at concessions, possibly on the facility fees that we looked at too as well. Going to a flat fee, or just having some other idea out there. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, can you go back one? I noticed that the dressing, you're not considering the dressing room or the back area, the backstage at the River Stage as a, are you, because that really needs work.
Yes, I agree on that. I think all of that area at the River Stage definitely needs a lot of work.
But that's not in here, right?
No, sir.
Okay,
We
is
can
there
put
a
it on
reason
there.
why not?
No, when we had,
This discussion is more about how do we capture revenue. I mean, we know we have a long list of improvements. And
Okay.
we need to keep
Okay.
adding to that.
Got
so-
it, okay.
and most of the times at the River Stage, a lot of the guys stay on the bus. So that's why I don't see it as something that we
Priority.
need to rush to,
Okay.
because they do stay on the bus.
Don't let us forget.
Right, got it.
So let's look at concessions from 2015 to 2018. As you can see, we were budgeted in 2015 at 34,000, brought in 36,000. Overall, it's actually been pretty close, or we've did pretty well on our concessions, and that goes to the having more concerts and events like that. The concerts bring in great facility fees. They do bring in concessions, and they bring in merchandise sales, novelty sales. River Stage, same thing. Facility fee, you can look at that one too as well. And then the Coliseum facility fees too as well, that we've discussed that before. And then now I do want to look at this for River Stage novelty sales too. And for 2015, 2016, they actually didn't have it as an item, I guess, or actually, I'm sorry, I got these mixed. It's supposed to be the other way, budget and actual. And then also for the Coliseum novelty sales, we've done pretty well, as you can see in 2017, how well that was, 2018. So the numbers are increasing in those areas. Facility improvements proposal. So this is where I believe we should go with it. Once budgeted amount is met, any additional facility fees shall be put into a contingency account. So what we've been budgeted at for the past few years for facility fees, let's say for the Coliseum, we've been at $109,000. So anything past that $109,000, we'll put that into the contingency account for improvements for the facility.
Now that if we go towards this higher fee, then that increases the
That
revenue.
increases.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, sir.
Does it not just flow to fund balance anyway? I guess I'm confused on that. What exactly are you meaning, put it into a contingency account?
It's basically called that. It's a contingency account. We have one at the municipal pool where it captures the revenue, and that revenue can, with council permission, carry over to the next year.
So it's a cash-based account that carries over from year to year. And
Is that something, Ryan, you
and
can
that
explain better?
And that does not go into the fund balance? That
It
remains?
does. It is in the fund balance.
Yeah, either way, it's gonna end up in the fund balance. The way that they're using it at the municipal pool, they have a restricted account that is only able to use for the pool, but the mechanism would yield the same results as as you have increases in these amounts. If you don't use it, it just flows into fund balance, and then whenever you have a need for it, like for facility improvements, then you make a proposal and you use that fund balance in many cases, if it's available, to fund that project.
So it's essentially it's a contingency on an annual basis. If you basically you're taking the overrealized revenue and parking it in contingency only for the remainder of that year, and then it will flow down to fund balance?
Right.
But with council's permission, that it could keep that same.
Those funds would still be available either via fund balance or via contingency account.
The interest would be just to be able to keep track of what each facility on its own has generated.
Right. Yeah, if you looked at those, we have the ability, we track each venue separately. We have a separate, for lack of a better term, separate account for each venue. So we can see how each venue is performing on a monthly basis and on an annual basis. And we can see that that their revenues outperformed and their expenses underperformed or whatever. So that revenue in excess or expenses in excess flows to fund balance, like you said, Steve.
I think, Steve, the comment I heard from one council member was actually, while it does flow to fund balance, was actually keeping those restricted. So that would carry over from year to year. So for instance, you realize that revenue, they made extra revenue. It flows back into fund balance, which means anybody could request use of those dollars under the guidelines of HOT. In this case, it would actually, while it falls back to that fund balance, it would restrict those dollars for use.
But being
How do we have civic events in its own fund?
right.
You have the civic events fund balance is available only to civic events.
Right. The intention is whatever revenue we capture, that is protected in some account for each particular facility that we could tap into for these improvements that we're talking about.
That overrealized revenue cannot be utilized for any other operating,
Unless the board makes a recommendation, council approves to shift money around. But that's the intent, is for those accounts to be protected for those specific venues.
And whenever we wanted to use the funds, we just go to council and request. Is there a dollar amount that you have to go?
Yes. Yeah. We probably still have to go to city council to utilize those funds.
But my question was, is there, in other words, if you're just gonna use 1,000 to fix a door, do you have to go to council or?
As long as it's budgeted already, yeah. It would just have the regular limits. Anything over 50,000 or more would have to go to city council.
I guess my fear on that is and this, I don't know if I can bring this up or not, but going back to the whole percentage versus flat, hot dollar consideration, I would hate to handcuff us that if we did have to utilize some of this facility fee to take care of salaries or other items that are within your 410, I'd hate to handcuff us on that when, we could be utilizing it to stabilize our budget. And, I definitely don't want to get into a negative fund balance or, dig into our 90-day surplus that we have. So That's where I was trying to get an understanding. Now that we are in separate funds, if it flows down to fund balance, it's ours. 605 can't touch it. I assume council can't touch it for these other entities or any other things like that. Council could make a decision to use it for civic events. Is that correct?
410.
And 410.
Yes, but
So in other words, council can't make a decision or city management can't make a decision to dip into 410's fund balance to utilize for something outside of civic events.
I can't answer that, but going back to what we're trying to do here is capture revenue. And he's got different options that he's going to go through to try to capture revenue and put in protected accounts. Your concern is, are we tying our hands by losing that revenue for operational expenses?
I love the concept. I do. And I think it's a great concept to capture that money and earmark it specifically for facilities. But because we are in two separate funds now, we're handcuffing ourselves to where at some point we cannot utilize, say we're just banking over-realized revenue on facility fees. That's great. Well, what if we're under-realizing in other areas, but we're handcuffed because we're trapped on using that just for facilities? There may be 1 year where we're like, hey, we really need to tap into that money.
Well, that's why his proposal is looking at capturing what's in excess of what's budgeted. So he'll start off with a budget in facility fees, novelties, whatever, whatever concessions, whatever he exceeds in that budget would go into that protected account.
And that's what I'm saying, but it's in that protected account. We couldn't utilize that for an under-realized somewhere else. Say our electricity bill runs over budget. We can't use facility fees to help offset that electricity bill because we have handcuffed ourselves at that point. I guess my question is, why not just let it flow to fund balance and we can use it how we need to?
You could do that. I think you could set up that account however you want. It wouldn't have to be restricted just for facility. You could, it's not created yet, so you can create it however you want it. It could say that it's restricted for use within civic events, and any of the facilities or programs.
Okay.
You can structure that however you want because it's not set up.
That makes more sense. Okay,
See,
thank you.
but doesn't creating a protected account, should council go to the fixed budget, doesn't that soften the blow, or am I oversimplifying it?
Soften the blow.
Soften the blow. In other words, we're talking about going to a fixed budget, but if we have this protected money that we can use for facilities, and in my
Yes.
mind, the way I'm thinking, it softens it a little bit.
Yes.
Makes it a little bit better proposal if we can capture this money.
Right, and I was going to mention that earlier, but y'all were heading in that direction to table it anyhow. But yes, I agree.
And once again, we had that agenda item up first before we kind of brought this up. But being able to protect some of that money, I think if we ended up going to a fixed fund balance, softens the blow, in my opinion, a little
I
bit.
agree.
So looking at the proposal again, once budgeted amount is met, any additional facility fees shall be put into a contingency account. Each facility would have its own contingency account as well, and then Civic Events Manager will meet with the Civic Events Advisory Board and then City Council for allocation of money for projects due to how much, that project does cost, if we do need to meet with City Council. Also, we have another event that's put on the books. So I look at, the River Stage needs. Coliseum, of course, we do well with what we get for facility fees from the rodeo, and then we have the additional events that are coming in. So I do feel that both in the facility fees area, we will have a healthy budget. But we do have an event that's coming up in May called the Concho Valley Spring Jam. It was just an event that was put together, and it's going to be a 3-day event at the River Stage. Contracts waiting on the ink to dry on it. But what I see so far with where we're at with the River Stage facility fees, we will already be over budget, hopefully in the next few months, with the early on events that we've had this year, with the Signal concert, and we've also had 2 other concerts that are going on at the River Stage. This has helped us usually in the years prior, we didn't have events in October, November at the River Stage that actually brought in some type of revenue. This year, it was a little bit different for us. And so with that, we're going to have a healthy budget moving forward early on into the year. So with this spring jam that we have, I would like to be able to take whatever revenue that we do make from just that event, coming from the rental, the facility fee as well, the merchandise, and also the concessions, and be able to put that all together into the River Stage improvements. What are the contingency accounts for River Stage improvements as well. This event should do very well for us, and I'm hoping that this relationship with the promoter will be able to grow for years to come. He has brought events here prior to this event right here, but I feel that this is an event that we can actually have annually, and we could also possibly look at using this money annually as well for whatever needs that we have for our facilities for the River Stage. So, you know, the chunks of that could possibly be coming back from this spring jam, we can put that towards the concessions, or we can put that towards the restrooms, and just have a plan for, hey, in 4 or 5 years, if we have X amount of dollars in there, we can go ahead and get the restrooms and everything else that we need for our facilities done.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When in May is this promotion?
First week in May.
I've noticed that, and I don't know if I can bring this up. We've discussed this about Monette. During Cinco de Mayo on 16 de Septiembre, the Lions Club, and they've been doing this like probably 30 years, that they try to bring in revenue for the Lions Club during those Hispanic holidays. And it always happens that something is falling in that time period, and it really takes away a whole lot from that. It was something that was brought up to my concern. I don't know if that's something I can bring up here, but why does that usually happen around the Hispanic holidays?
Because that's a hot commodity. Now, this event right here is a country type concert, so to me it wouldn't, you know, it really
I've
shouldn't
actually
be
attended
affected
the
and
events,
stuff.
and a lot of the Hispanics do go to the country concerts.
And I also look at it as we rent out our facilities. If we start saying, hey, you cannot rent out this facility, we're going to kill off a lot of revenue.
Right.
This event right here could bring us in possibly
Right.
around $40,000.
Okay.
I don't want to say we can't do it because it's on Cinco de Mayo weekend, when that's
Right.
when he normally does his events as well too.
Right. Okay.
And then once budgeted amount of concessions is met as well, any additional revenue will be split between facilities with contingency accounts. So again, in the last few years, we've only been at 40,000. We've been touching over 40,000 with a lot of our with the concessions. So I'm hoping that we could be able to use that money too as well, and split those between the accounts for the contingency.
So the question is, do you want us to start capturing some revenue to set aside for future improvements? And if so, what's your interest? How would you like to do it? He's giving you some options. I think Sid's got some preferences. I think that events like the Spring Jam and probably concessions.
Yeah, Spring Jam, concessions. We can also look at possibly the novelty sales, but I would rather just take it from concessions and just the facility fees.
And, yeah, right.
And this event right here.
Define concessions for me. I'm not sure what we're
Concessions
talking
is
about.
the alcohol sales, the percentage that we receive from San Angelo hosts. We put that. We usually budget that at about 40,000. In 2017, we did 52,000, and this past year we did a little bit over about 43,000. So using that revenue that we have over and putting that into that account.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around how many contingency accounts do you see?
I would only, actually looking at it, it would only be able to be for the River Stage and the Coliseum. Of course, for the convention center, we don't have facility fees over here. The only event that we do that we capture a facility fee on, $1.50 technically, would be the West Texas Tattoo Convention. Other than that, we actually don't have the concerts and events that we used to have with the auditorium coming back online.
So the River Stage?
River Stage would have its own contingency account, and then Coliseum would have its own.
For some reason, it just seemed to me there was more.
Well, we have the Paseo, but we don't collect facility fees at the other venues that we have, Farmers Market.
It's usually going to be a
those
place where you have the
areas.
big ticketed items, the concerts and stuff, so that's going to be a River Stage in your Coliseum.
So, and I also grabbed that on these contingency accounts, as you're putting money into them, overflow money into those accounts, you can split that between those contingency funds? Or is a river stage overflow destined only for the river stage contingent?
I would say the River Stage, I would want them to be for their own accounts. River Stage facility fees only go for the River Stage. Coliseum facility fees goes towards the Coliseum.
You could have put it in one contingency account for all your venues, but I think that might spread it out too much.
Yeah, I would.
And we got to remember, we still have the fund balance that we can tap into from time to time for the other facilities. But we were really just thinking the River Stage and the Coliseum because those generate the most revenue and they have the most needs.
So is this going to put us into a balancing situation where we're going to have to balance contingency fund money against using fund money?
Fund balance?
Restricted funds so that we keep one and we don't lose the other at the same time?
Well,
Especially if they're talking about going to a flat rate?
Kind of where I was at.
That's a good point.
I think the contingency fund work towards smaller projects, smaller needs, and could help match some fund balance for the bigger projects.
And that's what I would like to get to, of being able to match and say, hey, we already have X amount of dollars from the facility fees. Can we use $30,000 from our fund balance and put that together?
Don, what are you
for
saying, that
some
we
project?
go ask to get some money, and then they say, well, you got your contingency fee, so we're not gonna give you, is that what you're saying?
It lessens the blow.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, I'm just wondering if that's where you're
And
going
I'm not
with it.
against, I understand the budget thing and why they want to do, I can see that's going to happen, but I think in discussing things like these contingency accounts and when we start talking about fees that we want to mess with and stuff like that, we need, as a board, we need to keep in the back of our mind that how is this going to affect us if we're percentage, or how is this going to affect us if we're flat? Not knowing what it's going to be, I think we need to look at things like these, being able to bounce it both ways
Totally agree.
until the decision's made.
He makes a good
That we're
point.
gonna be
Really
flat.
good
and
point.
that's all
He
there
makes
is
a
to it.
good point.
You know.
That's a real good point.
Again, my fear is that, we separated, so we're now in 410. So we're living in our own little world here, okay? And so we don't want to restrict ourselves from being able to utilize over-realized revenue where we have shortfalls somewhere else. And that's my only fear. We don't want to tap into fund balance to take care of some of those, if we come in overexpensed, right? We've gone over expenses, well, that decreases our fund balance. But yet, we've got a contingency fund sitting over here, so we're just playing the shell game, essentially is what we're doing. You know what I mean? We're decreasing fund balance, but yet we've got a facility fee contingency over here. In my opinion, I would rather keep that fund balance healthy than a contingency fund healthy, I guess, and that's just my opinion. And I totally agree with Don. I was actually going to say, is it a consideration to table this particular item until we find out if we're going to be flat or percentage? Because that may change the whole dynamic of this. But
I agree.
I know you didn't want to hear that, I'm sorry, but it just,
It is board.
That's why y'all are here.
any other discussion on that, or do we have?
need to motion
yeah,
that one?
we
or
do
what?
have
I mean, I'll
motion.
make a-
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
make
we got a motion in one way or the other.
I'll make a motion that we table it until the flat versus percentage thing is figured out. And then bring it back and let's talk about it and follow it from there.
So we got a motion?
I'll second the motion.
We got a second. All those in favor to table this item until we have further information? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So
It's
motion
good we had
passes.
a discussion on it.
Yeah. So with that, consideration of future agenda items.
Future agenda items, I would like to be able to schedule some time for us to be able to go and do facility walkthroughs. Of course, this is around the time of the year that we normally would do these facility walkthroughs. The situation that we do have, of course, we all have busy schedules, so trying to find time to be able to do our facility walkthroughs. Do we want to be able to just take a meeting, our next board meeting that's scheduled for the end of November, and doing walkthroughs, or do we want to try to choose some time before then to be able to do a walkthrough of the facilities? If we have to, myself and Steve, we can do 2 sets of them if we need to. If we need to do a walkthrough with a few of y'all at one time.
You want to do it before the end of the year, or can we do it like in January?
I really like to do them before the end of the year. That way I know it, when we come back, we already know what we're looking at.
I'd like to recommend that we do it at our next board meeting,
Okay.
be part of our next board meeting.
Will you have any business you need to deal with as well? I mean, you can do both.
I don't know what's going to happen with. I mean, I know we need to bring the other discussion back too.
What if
as
the
well and
council
discuss.
decides to honor our request to delay it?
Yeah, then
Then we'd be talking about that, wouldn't we?
Either way, we've got an item to discuss contingent upon their vote. So either way, we have business.
We can schedule it in December. I would prefer to schedule it in December before Christmas, and we just do a walkthrough of the facilities then. And we just have our normal board meeting in November.
That's the way we've done it in years
Yes.
past. In December
Let's
has
just
been
do
our
December.
walkthrough, and that's been our meeting for December, so.
We can easily do the convention center walkthrough while we're, after the meeting or something, before the meeting, but
So on meetings, let's discuss. Does December fall? That's the last Thursday of December. Do we need to recommend bumping that up, or based off holidays?
I
You
need
know,
to, yeah,
Maybe
just
we
before
discuss that
Christmas.
later.
Let's do
Okay,
something
it's-
before Christmas, whatever works.
And I think, as a board, we want to be consistent with our meetings. And I know lately we've had to bump things and, there's been certain circumstances, but I agree. We set these on our
Yes.
calendars. And so we need to try to stick to those. So the sooner we can decide if we're bumping December up or anything, let's make that call.
In the past, we haven't had any board meetings in December.
Okay.
We've actually just done the walkthroughs and stuff. So, I mean, it's still considered as a
Sure.
board meeting, since we're all
We
together.
just had to move the date.
So any other items from anyone else that'd like
Well,
to
there's a
add?
couple other things
Yes, and
mentioned.
then also the civic event policy. So last year, we had a policy committee that consisted of Don, Billy, were you on there, Steve?
Yeah, he came on.
And Steve as well. Of course, this year I would like to go ahead and start that too as well, and maybe we can get some nominations for who would like to be on the event policy, the committee for that. We did meet throughout the week. I think we met once a week at one point or something like that.
Well,
you know.
it was pretty comprehensive redo. So
Yes.
this time I don't know if it'll
This
be that.
time we don't have as many amending parts of the policy that we would like to do, but there are some additional policies that I would like to put in place. Clear bags, bag checks, of course, is very important in the days of public ticketed events right now. So that's one of them, and just a few other items too as well. But I do need to have a committee that we would like to form, and then be able to bring what we discuss as a committee back to our board, and for you all to be able to vote on those items, and then I can bring those to council. So who would like to be on the committee this year?
I'll stay on it.
Do we need that as an agenda item to vote on?
I don't think we did that last time.
I don't think you need to vote on that.
Yeah.
But as far as other items, I think Dale brought up.
Actually, if I remember correctly,
And Rick,
you as chair, you have.
you had a meeting set up at one point with the stock show,
Untold?
CVB. Rick mentioned that earlier too.
Yes, so that's another meeting that we do need to have, is a meeting with CVB as well, with SASRA, Stock Show and Rodeo, and ourselves as a board too, to be able to discuss the items that we discussed earlier about the convention center, the Coliseum as well, and all of those needs. So we do need to have some time to get those together. That is a lot of parties and a lot of people that we would have to put together, but I would like to be able to get that in our book so we can have that discussion and start moving towards how we would like to move with our facilities.
This may be an ignorant question. Does it have to be closed to a certain groups? Or, I mean, if you say, hey, this is an open meeting with all stakeholders that have anything to do with hot dollars, our facilities. So for instance, if downtown wants to come, or Fort Concho, or
We
I
could
mean,
do it as a forum, huh?
Well,
Public forum.
if your board meet, it's a public meeting.
I'd like to
It's a
open it up.
public meeting.
It's posted,
Not that it's
anybody can
closed.
come.
You're right, but I mean, we want to open it up, the invitation to everyone, not just any stakeholders that would be involved in this. Is I guess where I'm trying to get to, and maybe reach out to those folks and say, hey, this is your time to come talk and voice your opinions on why we can't bring in certain events for you.
So would you rather just set it up as basically a public forum, and we just have a discussion on that, and whoever the stakeholders are, they're
But I
able to
think we
come
need
and
to
voice their
invite them.
opinions.
We need to.
Well, yeah, I think you would
we have
invite
to
them to come in.
specifically invite everybody.
But I think that kind of
and-
dialogue would
and-
be good.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. And I don't know the protocol on this, so somebody give me some advice. But, you know, the county's looking at doing some pretty aggressive things coming up. I don't know where they're sitting on that. I've attended meetings. But they're looking at doing some redevelopment of their properties. And maybe they become a partner. I don't know how that would work, though. I think that's something that needs to be looked at from a city staff perspective to see how do we work through that?
That's a good question.
I have no idea.
It's something we have to visit with the city manager's office. I don't know.
And he's been involved in some of those meetings, so.
He has.
Mhm.
I think this is a great vehicle for that, to hold a public forum type meeting. And I don't know who does it. If staff would reach out to each of these entities and let them know this is what we're doing. We'd like to have these discussions. Please bring your ideas, thoughts.
So going back to the convention center Coliseum idea, having a public forum instead of a meeting first, just to get the input.
Right?
We'll make sure you're there, Don.
Yeah, make sure Don's there.
Do we want to do a public forum, or do we want to make that a meeting?
It's going to be a meeting regardless if
we're all
if you're
there,
there
Okay.
anyway.
It's gonna be a
But
meeting
it's
anyways.
just
What?
I'd like to recommend that
If it's a
maybe,
public forum, it's not necessarily, if y'all don't discuss an item, if you just get input, it's a public forum. And answer questions. They're not taking any action.
So we could all be there?
Yeah, you can't take any action.
it would just be a public open forum. But I was thinking more in terms of being very specific about who comes to the table to invite certain organizations like CVB and the stock show and any other entity. I can't think of them all right now, but whatever other organization has a vested interest in what we do, to have a meeting with those groups and have just an open discussion about where they sit, get an idea of where they sit and what they're thinking, because I have no clue.
Well, in that case, would you like to have a board meeting with those
Yes.
representative groups?
Yes, and then
just like-
maybe
not
have the
entire
open forum.
groups.
Right,
Not the entire groups, just representatives.
just representatives,
Okay.
right, that could share their perspectives on where they're coming from and what their challenges are and how we can work together to address their challenges.
oh,
And then I think after that, we have the public forum where we get input from everybody,
Right. To see if it moves forward.
right?
we just have to see what the stock show's schedule is like too, with the rodeo coming up too as
Yeah,
well.
they're
That's right.
Next
the only thing.
3 months.
January and February is already
Yeah.
tied up for them. So
Can I also make one more recommendation? I know I practice this. I send an email to whoever sends me to be a part of a board or a commission. I send them an email and ask them to consider whatever motions we've made and ask them to help approve those motions at their meetings. And it's just a quick little email, just a paragraph. Say, hey, we met today and this is what we discussed, and I'm asking you to please delay the vote on this issue that we're addressing on the budget. And they can write you back and tell you no and and tell you why
Or
they're
say
saying
more
no.
than no.
Hopefully they'll tell you why they don't agree, but and maybe they'll say yeah. Who
Well,
knows?
I think it is good for board representatives to have dialogue with their
yes, definitely.
council member.
Motion to adjourn?
Did we pick a target date for the walkthrough?
Did we pick a target date?
No, we
Walkthrough?
didn't. That would be
Sorry.
nice, though.
The meeting in December, right?
We're
thought
gonna
Is
have to
everybody
move it
going to
from
be
the
here
holidays.
that
Yeah.
week between Christmas and New Year's?
Well, I thought you were going to
It's
look at
gotta
the
be
calendar
earlier. We
and
were
pick a
gonna move
date in
earlier.
December.
I think he has to look at the calendar and
The
maybe we can
20th, maybe?
December
That's
the
what I was
20th is
thinking,
on a
the
Thursday,
20th.
Yeah. And then the 13th is prior to that.
I vote for the 20th.
That'll work.
Yeah.
So December 20th, we'll just meet at the, start at the Coliseum.
Okay. At 11.
What,
At 11.
Okay.
Karen?
Okay.
So we'll do the Coliseum and then go to the River Stage afterwards.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and knock those out. Coliseum, River Stage, and Sales just right around the corner from there too.
And November's meeting is at its regular time?
Yes,
not
November
that-
meeting will be,
That last week?
yes, the last
Seven.
Thursday of the month. That would
29th.
be November
29th.
29th at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
29th.
You good?
So motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn this meeting.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?